I love these guys.
Welcome to the Secondhand Lions. This is John Drennan here with my good friend Bill Radford, and we're in I think our 56th week into our second year of doing the Secondhand Lions. And when I say, I'm here with Bill Radford, I'm physically here. So those of you that listened to last week, which we did on Wednesday, well, today is Saturday, so today's the 15th. We've been traveling, but what about last week, Bill? I was on an island up in Canada where you live, and you were down in, I think, Nashville in the States. And we had our guest, my nephew Sam, on. Any reflections from your travel or from last week?
Yeah, I really enjoyed meeting Sam, trying to be the fan of the Seattle Seahawks, which is his natural affiliation being from Montana, but his father's a big Lions fan, and so he's got some attachment there as well. And I asked him the question, if the Lions played the Seahawks in the playoffs, who are you going to be for? And he gave us the right answer. He said he would be for the Lions because Seahawks have won two Super Bowls fairly recently, and he really thinks the Lions would deserve a chance to play in a Super Bowl. And I hope he's right. I hope that whoever the Lions do play in the playoffs, we're assuming they'll make it, that this is the year that we go to the Super Bowl. John and I are both north of 70 years of age, and we've never seen them in a Super Bowl. We've never seen them before the Super Bowl in an NFL championship. So we're very enthusiastic about the Lions lately with Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, Sheila Hamp as the owner. And I really enjoyed the article that you sent me earlier in the week where the owner said 9-8 isn't good enough. She has high expectations for the team, and I really think that's important for the owner and the GM and the coach to set those expectations, not only for the team but for the fans. Let everybody know that we're expecting big things out of the Lions this year.
Yeah, and Bill, for those who have listened, they know, we have taken this journey with the Lions to the Super Bowl. We were hoping it would be last year, and now we're hoping it'll be this year. And I know in last week's episode, you talked about 6 things that are necessary to win a Super Bowl. And the first one, really, you were talking about belief, but really it transfers to culture. And the culture of the Detroit Lions, I think, is fabulous with Sheila Ford Hamp as the owner now, and Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. And by the way, they did hire a new president. Rod Wood is gone. The new president actually had been an executive with the Detroit Pistons. You might say, well, why is a guy from the basketball world coming to a football franchise? Well, it's for the business side, really, that he will make his contributions. But hey, enough of that, Bill. Lions are 0-1 in the preseason. That's not a big deal. They did play Thursday night, lost to the Bengals in Cincinnati, 16-14. And a couple interesting things. The captains for the Lions in that game were Khalil Dorsey and Tom Kennedy. And the Bengals captains were like starters, and they opened with their starting offense with Joe Burrows and Jamar Chase. And it's like all their starters played a couple series. The Lions starters were in,
Street
t-shirts.
clothes, yeah.
Yeah, street clothes. So anyhow, Bill, any comments here you want to make initially regarding the first preseason game?
Well, John, I didn't get to see it because we were traveling, but you let me know your impressions, and I would say that you was very pleased with the play of the quarterback, Altmyer, and you were pleased with some of the defensive players, but and I'll let you talk about them. But the one concern you had was Isaac TeSlaa, who we're both very high on. had two drops and seemed to be struggling in the game. And the reports are that he's not had a good camp. Dan Campbell, though, has said that he's not worried about it. It's the second year stuff. Well, whatever that means is that he thinks he'll get over it and be a big contributor. But you had some impressions of some of the players on defense. Why don't you let us know about those?
Yeah, so let me start by saying I didn't watch the game either initially. What I was able to do, because I was traveling, but I was able to hear it on Sirius radio for most of the first half. I'd arrived home in time to then watch part of the second half on my phone. Then I went back and watched most of the game. And I've also listened to and read kind of what others have to say. So I want to start there, Bill. Tim Twentyman is the name of he's a senior writer, I think, for the Detroit Lions. He's always posting on the Detroit Lions website. He posted this: 5 players who stood out in the game. Number one, he lists is Skylar Gill Howard. He was the number 6 draft pick this year, so he's a rookie out of, I believe it was Texas A&M. He's an undersized interior lineman, 6', 280, but he's known for having a huge motor, great quickness, great pursuit, and he had a really good game. In fact, I did see one play where he ran down the quarterback and just showed his speed. So that was number one. Number two, Bill, edge rusher Ahmed Hassanein. I remember last year at this time, I was really hyping him up and saying I think he'll be a fan favorite. He's a gentleman who grew up in Egypt. He played at Idaho State, looked good in the first preseason game last year. Then he got hurt and he missed the whole season. But you and I were talking, he went on a injury contract that would have allowed him to be signed by a different team, but he committed to the Lions. He wouldn't do that. So when he came out of the injury, he re-signed with the Lions, and he had a great game, Bill. 2 sacks, two sacks, I think 2 pressures, a forced fumble, and 4 tackles, and great enthusiasm.
Didn't you tell me that he had a vision of sacking Joe Burrow before the game? He had actually manifested that sort of in today's parlance. He saw himself doing it, and when it came to fruition, where he got to the quarterback and sacked him, he was just so overjoyed that he was actually in tears. I didn't see it, but you did. So describe what happened there.
Yeah, well, I actually, again, on the Lions app, went to a video of him being interviewed. So he did talk about how he visualized it, how he prayed on it, how he spent a lot of time the morning, I think before the game, looking at tape to look at the Bengals tackles and how how they set their feet and that kind of thing. And then after he made the sack, you could see him get up and pumping his fists and everything. What you couldn't see is he was crying. And he said he was crying because he was so happy. And the guy plays with so much enthusiasm. So I think, again, this year he'll be a fan favorite. I think he did a lot, Bill, to wrap up a 53-man roster spot. Number 3 is the running back, Jacob Saylors. He pretty much was the offense for the first half. He had 55 yards rushing, 3 catches for, I think, 28 yards, and just looked good with the ball in his hands. So, again, these are the 5 players that Tim Twentyman said excelled. So I started here with Skylar Gill Howard, defensive lineman, then Ahmed Hassanein, who's an edge rusher, then Jacob Saylors, who's a running back. Then our kicker, Jake Bates, hit 2 in the rain, 40-plus yards and 52 yards, so he's reliable. And then, Bill, I'm real excited because Keith Abney, rookie cornerback, taken in the fifth round. Many people had him projected to go in the third or fourth rounds, but he played well, had a great tackle, and is certainly competing for that starting cornerback spot. So that was from Tim Twentyman. But Bill, let me give you some of my thoughts on both sides of the ball. You mentioned I liked Altmyer, the quarterback, undrafted quarterback from Illinois. And I thought for first time playing in an NFL competition, he looked good. And the coaches felt that as well.
When the Lions are going to need a backup quarterback because Teddy Bridgewater retired, and so that's an open spot.
Yeah, and folks, that's news since we last were on here last week that Bridgewater retired. And you thought right away, okay, Altmyer's now number two. But then the Lions brought in Josh Dobbs, who's been in the league for about 8 years as a journeyman and has shown he can play. So he's probably number two right now. He did play a little bit, but had just been in the building for a few days, so didn't play that much. And I didn't see any of the game when he was in it, but apparently he did okay, given he just got here.
I saw him play for Minnesota, um, and he did well when he was in there for them, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. So, Bill, a couple other observations. Jackson Meeks, who has converted from a big wideout to now playing tight end. He's up to about 235 pounds. He had a nice catch and run. And I only say that because, he did that from the tight end position, and he could end up a number four tight end this year, either on the team or with the 16-man practice squad. I heard different things, Bill, about Ennis Rakestraw. He's the 2 year ago cornerback that was the number two pick behind Terry and Arnold. He's been hurt for 2 years. This year he came in bigger and stronger. He led the team in tackles for at least the first half of the game, and from what I heard, was playing pretty well, but then later in the game hurt his shoulder. So everyone's saying, oh God, here we go again. But apparently it was just a contusion, and they're thinking he'll be back probably in a week or so. So um, anything we can hear about him playing and doing well, I think, is a huge plus.
Yeah, it's important that the number one ability in the NFL is availability. You can have all the talent and giftedness in the world, but if you can't stay healthy enough to be on the field, it doesn't matter. And there's a lot of guys that have that ability and have that giftedness that apparently they just don't have the body to withstand uh, the hits in the NFL. I know you and I have talked, and we would last one play. So one,
That was when we were in our prime.
right,
Today we'd have trouble getting from the huddle to the.
right. But I think unless you're down at field level, watching on TV, you don't realize how big and strong these men are. Uh, it really takes a toll just to play the game.
I think a lot of people, if they stood on the sidelines of an NFL game, they would say this should be outlawed.
Right.
This is way, way too fierce. Anyhow, another player that kind of stood out was Nowatzki, the linebacker. In fact, I did see him make one play where he stepped up into the hole and smashed the running back at the line of scrimmage, but he was in on many plays as a linebacker. And then their new linebacker, who had only been in the building a week or so, Devin White. Good to see that he was already making plays. We mentioned him last week, Bill, but maybe not enough. This is a guy. Well, we did say these things, but I want to say it again. They picked up this guy who last year was third in the NFL in tackles for the season last year. He played back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when Tom Brady led them to a Super Bowl, whatever that was, maybe 5, 6 years ago. So he's been on a Super Bowl, and he was a first round draft pick back when he came into the league, I think in 2017. So this is a guy with enormous experience, third tackler in the league last year. And you think about him and Jack Campbell in a two linebacker set, just stopping the run. Very excited to have him on the roster.
And you mentioned a D-back that is very good at helping with the run, and who is that?
Well, I think that's the one Tim Twentyman mentioned, and that's Keith Abney, their
Yeah.
rookie fourth round pick. Yeah, a physical player, and they're very high on him. Now, there were some challenges, Bill, and you mentioned Isaac TeSlaa had challenges coming into this game. The reports from training camp is he's just struggling. And so he gets in the game, and the first pass to him in the first drive went through his hands. And by the way, it was rainy, it was wet. That does matter. But he's been such a sure-handed receiver, but it went through his hands, off his helmet, and got picked off. Then later he had another one he could have caught and didn't. I think he had one catch, but was targeted multiple times. And so he's struggling. And, you and I have both been really high on him from last year and then early this year, and excited that he's the number three receiver. And so I was curious to hear Dan Campbell's comments. And he just said, it's what you go through in the league, and he'll have his ups and downs, and he'll be fine. So that was Campbell's take on it. And I think so too. I mean, we're not going to push a panic button. We just would love to hear that he's having a great camp. We'd love to see him be productive here in this next game. A couple other struggles. Miles Frazier, late round pick last year, who was hurt most of the year. He was offsides, I believe it was, 3 times. So 3 penalties, that did not help him.
That'll get you cut.
Yep, that was not good. And then what's his name? Lovett from last year, the wide receiver from Georgia. He had a couple drops, and he's got a good shot of making the team, but not if he's dropping the football. And by the way, Bill, one guy that I was impressed with was an undrafted free agent from the UFL, last name Black. It's Tariq Black, I believe played at Louisville. He had one catch on the sideline that was outstanding on a ball that Altmyer threw that was outstanding, but then they waved it off. The penalty was Black pushed the defender. But if you went back and watched it, it's like, really? It wasn't like, okay, he touched the guy. So I thought it was a poor call and a great catch of about 25 yards. But then he had another catch where he caught it and ran and scored the only touchdown for the Lions. So he looked impressive in what I got to see. And by the way, Lions did score the touchdown, and then Altmyer ran in the 2-point conversion. So that's what I've got from what I know of the first game, and the fact they lost is here nor there. It's a preseason game.
Yeah, and we have a couple of injuries that one that we need to be concerned about is our new center, Cade Mays, has a fracture in his wrist. He's expected to be out 8 to 10 weeks. And what I've heard is that the Lions have an early bye this year. After 5 games, they have the 6th week bye, and he may return after that. But that'll be good if he does, because the first 5 games, other than Buffalo, the Lions will be favored in the other 4. That doesn't mean automatically that you'll win them, but Buffalo will be favored, and they'll be opening in their new stadium the first game. It'll be prime time. The Lions do really well in prime time, so they may upset Buffalo, but the Lions could very well be 4-1 those first 5 games. So, and then they get Mays back after that, assuming that he's good to go. Uh, Risks are they can be kind of dicey, so hopefully he'll get back sooner rather than later. And then you said Juice Scruggs was also injured, but that was expected to be a short-term thing. Who was it that played center for us then, John?
Yeah, so the center, um, oh, okay, I'm gonna get you his name here because he was a high draft pick out of Ohio State. No, I'm sorry, he was a like an All-American at Ohio State. Seth McLaughlin. He's in his second year, and apparently he got hurt, I think, toward the end of his senior year at Ohio State, so did not get drafted high. Otherwise, he would have. But he's 6'4", 304 pounds, was considered, again, a very good player at Ohio State. And I've heard good things about him. The challenge was, last year he was recovering from that injury from college. And this year it looks like he's going to be ready to play. The challenge is, as we know, it's hard to take a center who's never played and come out and be your starting center in the NFL. But Juice Scruggs is expected to be the starting center for the opening game. His injury's soft tissue, and they expect he'll be back for this week's game with the Commanders. And then that'd make McLaughlin the second or the backup center until we get Cade Mays back.
And this is why depth is so important because, I have friends that as soon as we heard that Cade Mays was injured, they're texting me and saying, "Here we go again," because the last, really the last 3 years, the Lions have been beset with injuries that have kept them from uh, getting as far as we think they should have gone talent-wise. Especially 2 years ago when they were 15-2, they were just decimated on the defensive end. Uh, and Cade Mays was probably the big offseason acquisition for us uh, to solidify the offensive line. So to hear that he was hurt, uh, people got emotional reactions about that. But hopefully, he'll be back and the Lions can weather that storm.
Yeah, Bill, last week you did a good job talking about those 6 things that it takes to win, and two of them sort of go hand in hand, depth and injuries. And one thing I was aware of as I kind of followed this first preseason game is we do have a lot of depth. Um, a couple more comments on that. Miller, our first round pick at right tackle, and Larry Borum, who played left tackle, those guys were very solid. And we definitely want Miller to grow and learn. He'll make his mistakes, but if he can be a solid rookie at right tackle this year, of course, Penei Sewell, left tackle, and Larry Borum is a really qualified backup. That solidifies a position that's so important. But other depth, just the defensive backfield. So, for example, Bill, DJ Reed, he didn't play because he's considered a starter and they just didn't play their starters. Um, but he's probably their number one cornerback right now. But then Ennis Rakestraw, who I already talked about, he played. Rock Yassin, who's a likely starter at cornerback, he played some. Nick Whiteside, Bill, you and I were talking. He's pretty much he's had such a great training camp. The word is he has secured himself on the 53-man roster. He played, and by the way, from last year, I remember he was key in the Tampa Bay win as one of the cornerbacks that filled in when the Lions were missing their 2 starters. But he looks like he'll be real solid. Roger McCrary, who they picked up in free agency, a veteran, he played and did well. And then Christian Isian, who came in that can play safety or cornerback, played. He did well. And then we talked about Keith Abney. So there's just a lot of depth at multiple positions. I won't go through them all. That has me feeling good about that whole depth and injury scenario.
And they go hand in hand because the better depth you have, uh, players can get a breather. They don't have to stay on the field the whole game, and there's not that much of a difference between them and the backup when they come in to spell the starter for a series or a play or two, and that tired causes injuries, and so. Uh, I'm looking forward to this being a relatively injury-free year. I know looking back last year, the Seattle uh, Seahawks were fairly injury-free, and so were the New England Patriots, and those were the two Super Bowl teams. Uh, it would have been Denver, I'm convinced, except they lost their quarterback uh, in the playoffs. So injuries determine a lot in an NFL season.
Yeah, Bill, I'd much rather have a fresh, um, uninjured backup over a tired, beat up starter.
Right.
And so, yeah. And speaking, by the way, of quarterbacks, you mentioned Denver and their injury. Um, the Bengals are going to be a good team this year if Joe Burrow stays healthy. And last year they struggled big time with Burrow's out. I believe they were 2-8. With him starting, they were um, no, I think I have that wrong. I think they were 8-2 when he came back and 1-5 without him. Whatever it was, clearly Joe Burrows needs to be on the field. And if he is, Bengals have shored up their defense and they're going to be good this year, and we don't play them this year. Um, Bill, who we do play, we were talking about this. All the teams from the NFC South, and that's the division that didn't their winner of the division go 8-9 last year.
Yeah, they didn't have a team that was 500 or better last. They're considered the weakest division in the NFL, and we're playing all four of them. But then conversely, the NFC North is widely considered the best or the second best division in the NFL, and we have to play 6 games in divisions. So, uh,
Well, speaking of playing games, let's start to wrap this up. Our next game is Saturday. By the way, again, today is Saturday the 15th, and next game will be a week from today. We're playing at Ford Field at noon against the Commanders. And I got to tell you, Bill, ever since the Commanders kicked us out of the playoffs 2 years ago, I don't ever want to lose to them again.
right.
I want to beat them every time we play them, preseason or not. So it'll be the next test. There is some talk that the Lions may play their starters, but we shall see on that. So before we wrap this up, buddy, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to, this is a little off topic, but I want to give kudos to the Detroit Tigers. We're Detroit sports fans, and they started the year just horribly. They were 5-21 in the month of May, and everybody was calling for the manager and the general manager to be fired and to clean house, wanting to get rid of players left and right. And as of now, they are the last wild card team, so they've come all the way back to get into the playoff picture. So kudos to the Detroit Tigers.
Yep. Yep. Growing up in Detroit it always feels good to just hear and know any of the sports teams are doing well. And um, be great to see the Tigers not only get in the playoffs, but advance. All right, well, that's it. And we hope you continue to join us on this journey. We're close to that first regular season game, which, by the way, Bill, will be at home, but against a Saints team that's expected to be quite a bit better. So nobody start counting that win until the Lions can actually go on the field and produce it.
All right, it's good to be with you all. We'll see you next week.
All right, take care. Bye bye for now.